Hello, it's Mr. Klein here. Today you'll be getting back your student's Unit 1 math test. And so there's a cover sheet on the top of this math test, and I want to make sure that you understand what you're looking at. So first of all, I've crossed out the student's name, but the students all took a pre-test on the 24th of August, and these were their scores for the pre-test. So that was before any instruction. We don't do a pre-test for compacted. The post test is the test that they just took on Thursday, and those are the scores that actually would count for the report card. So if you look here at the A, B, C, D, E, those are the targets, and you can see what each target is. And again, we're trying to separate the math into the actual skills that the students are using. And so some of these targets actually are on the report card and some of them are not. But only post-test scores would ever count for the report card, not pre-test scores. So the first thing to do with your kid would be to celebrate any areas where they made growth, the targets that they made growth. And again, here are the progress indicators from the report card. But if you look down below on this sheet, you're going to see a bunch of work that I've done to try to share the process with you and the student. So let's take a look at that. So the bottom half of the page is the process learning time reflection, and the goal with all of this is basically for you and the student, hopefully, to demystify the process that led to the growth that you saw above in the scores, or the lack of growth. So I want to go through these one at a time. So the first, we start with the notes are detailed, and I show my math work. So the notes are from the whole class lesson, which is a direct instruction before we break out into small groups and playlist time. So I have 4 indicators. This would be a 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I'm looking for is that the student has taken notes from the lesson, which is kind of proof for the student and for you and for me that they were paying attention to the lesson. I tell the kids that you take pride in your notes and you're kind of showing for yourself in the future that you were focused during that lesson. And it's a skill that will help them in middle school as well. And I'm also looking for lots of math work. So I want to see that they're doing lots of math work, not just in the lesson, but throughout their playlist, and they do that right there in their notes. So that's where I derive this score from. You'll have the playlist items highlighted by target. So this matches with those 5 targets from above, A, B, C, D, and E. And so after the whole class lesson, each student has their playlist, and they are picking activities, what they want to practice that day. And this is just the total number of items that they practiced, whether that was learning and review, which is usually watching a video, working with a friend, or whether that was practice, which would be more like the standard workbook, or some online practice options. Next, you'll see did they complete the playlist must-do activities. So to kind of guide their practice, we require that they do at least 5 of the practice options that have a diamond, and those would be 5 learn options, and that's to make sure that they are actually doing some of the learn options and not just the practice, because a lot of times kids will need a little bit more learning before they're ready to go on to those practice problems, and then that they've done at least 5 stars, which are the practice for the entire playlist. So this is sort of the minimum that we would want a student to do, and so you'll see if they completed that, it would be yes or no. Next we get to the homework. So we had 11 homeworks for grade level, and you can see how many they turned in. So this is strictly me checking for completion. Now I provide the answers for the homework, and students are supposed to check their own answers. So I taught them in the beginning of the unit how to show me that they've checked their answers by either doing stars or X's or smiley faces, frowny faces, and then to put a fraction of how many they got correct on their first try. So this is where I have checked if they checked their answers. So if they have not, that means maybe they're poorly completing their homework and they're not making the most of their practice time. And I talk a lot to them about how if you're going to do the homework actually doesn't count for their grade anywhere. Because we are using standards-based grades. So if you're going to do the homework, you might as well make it the best practice session you can. So if your student did not check their answers, I'd encourage you to work with them a little bit and help them to work on their practice habits. So next you will see the pre-test corrected yes or no. So at the very beginning of the unit, the students took a pre-test. It looks a lot like the post-test that they take at the end of the unit, but the numbers are obviously different. And so that first pretest is mostly for me so that I can see where they're starting from and sort them into small groups so that I can reach every student who needs help. But they also, at the end of the unit, I give them the answer key for the pretest, and they are supposed to go through that pretest. They have a full session in class, 60 minutes to work on that, and then the homework the night before the test is for them to finish going through that pretest using the answer key and fixing the problems that they missed. And that's a great chance for them to just go through the ones that they didn't know and to work on those problems. And it also really helps them get ready for the test because it's the same format. So a lot of times the students might know the math, like they might know how to make reasonable estimates, but part of our Common Core curriculum is that they can work in different formats. And so this is kind of a practice for them to see what kind of format the questions will be in on the test, which is always a tricky thing. So that one's really good practice to get ready for the test. And last, I know I'm coming up on 5 minutes here. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but here we have, this is where I will meet with every student at the end of every unit, and we will go through all of the above. We'll talk about the things that they did well and the things that they want to change for next unit. So when your student brings this test home, they should already have talked through with me what they've done well, what they can change for next unit. You can kind of continue that conversation, but know that they have already had that conversation with me in class. So hopefully that helps you to understand the process and reflection sheet as well as the grades. It is quite an enormous load of work for me to get this all ready and turned around to give back to you within 24 hours after the test. So I'm hoping that it's useful for you. But do let me know if you have any further questions. All right, thanks. Bye.